we come to you, to your home and your cars and you name it, wherever you're at. We are so grateful to have you here with us so we can have a really in-depth discussion about subjects that are relevant and timely for us. And the subject here is very timely: emotional intelligence. This week, we all been talking about the same topic, about what happened at the Oscar. And I wanted to have this conversation because my goal is not to talk about what happened to him, what happened to the other person, but my goal is to talk about how we as a community, as a society, can cultivate better emotional intelligence so that things like this don't happen to us if we are at the world stage or even if we are at home. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my guests who are on tonight. And they're my two great friends who are on tonight. And we have Fabiola and Melissa. So Melissa, why don't you say hello, and then Fabiola can go next. Just quickly introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Lisa Worthy. I do marketing for SIA Agency. I've known Gabrielle for some years, and I'm excited to talk about emotional intelligence today.
Correct. And Fabiola?
My name is Fabiola. I am the owner of Fab Living. And me and Gabrielle are just getting to know each other and getting comfortable. And I'm excited to talk about emotional intelligence as well.
Yes, I'm excited because, there's been a lot of conversations, people going back and forth about what happened, why it was, some people are for and against, and those things. I personally felt very uncomfortable when I saw what happened on Sunday. And I thought immediately, wow, this situation here definitely is that situation that exhibited emotional intelligence. And the scientists, psychologists have defined emotional intelligence as your ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotions. Perceive, control, and evaluate emotions. So, ladies, what did you think about what happened on Sunday? And do you think these types of analysis, perceive, control, and evaluate, you think that happened? Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I don't believe that happened. I don't believe that happened. Also, with emotional intelligence, it's something that you have to kind of be aware of yourself, your triggers. There is a history with the person who gave the slap, where they had a situation where their mother was abused by their father and they never took action. So that kind of trauma stayed with that person. And so he was okay because he knew it was a joke, but when he looked over at his wife, he noticed that she was not okay. And then it triggered him in a way for him to take action. Something that he's been working on, that he talks about in his book as well. So, but in that moment, he did not exercise any type of emotional intelligence to know that wasn't the right place. There were other ways he could have took care of that, maybe offline, in general. Although I do feel the joke did not also exhibit emotional intelligence, because that person also the wife expressed that she was suffering from alopecia. So, and it's a sensitive topic for our community and just in general. I know jokes are meant to be jokes. At the same time, it just, in the time that it was for the Oscars, which is not typically a colored event or, multicultural event of people, he could have chose another type of joke to talk about, I felt.
Yeah. So we know in a situation like this, for me, as I said earlier, that I saw it and immediately I was like taken aback, because I was like, wow, why would somebody get up out of their seat, walk all the way to, at least 50 feet, I think it was, or 25 feet to, we've been talking about social distancing, right? To walk that close to someone on a stage, world stage, and slap them. And of course, I thought about the fact that, this person who's doing the slapping must be feeling a certain way. But of course, emotional intelligence, one of the characteristics of someone who has that, someone who has empathy, how is the person who's receiving it gonna be feeling? And I think there was a lack of that. So how do you do it? Because your work, Fabiola, you work with, you said you have like 9 agents, and that's a lot, right? Many different personalities. How do you handle conflicts, and how do you handle those different personalities on a day-to-day basis? with the idea of emotional intelligence?
The most important thing I think is, first of all, I try to remember that we all are human beings and we all have emotions and we all have unsolved trauma to a certain extent. So when I deal with conflicts with my agents, the first thing I do is I like, you have to listen. Sometimes I think people listen to respond, but not to like process exactly what the person is saying. And so that's one way I resolve conflict. Two, before I respond, especially if I'm upset, I stay quiet first. Like, give yourself time to like process the information. And real estate can be really stressful. And it's not even just the agents. You have agents, you have buyer's agent, you have seller's agent, you have like the attorney, you have like, there's all this different people with different point of views and different aspects. One, respecting everyone, and then two, not to try to react out of emotion, but react based on the situation that's being presented. And with my agents, I do it all the time. I talk to one, like they all have different personalities, but I feel like if you respect the person as an individual and you actually listen, and not just listen to give a response, but listen to understand, it helps with giving a intelligent answer, because then you can empathize where the person's coming from and you can react appropriately. In regards to what happened at the Oscars, though, I think a lot of times people forget we are all human beings. I don't care like how much money you have, how much, like, we all human beings and we all have triggers. And if we have unresolved trauma, it will at some point, somewhere unexpected, show itself. So I think that's something us in our community need to take seriously, is our mental health. So when I saw that, I was just like, we're seeing the surface. We're not seeing what's really going on to cause that.
Yeah, definitely, because they say emotional intelligence can surprisingly is powerful to affect our lives, our abilities to foster long-term relationships with friends and even romantic partners, to succeed in school and in professional settings. Because, we've heard of, I think in the 90s, people used to talk about going postal. You're at work and someone, is not happy with the way things are going at work. Instead of looking for ways to manage the situation, looking for ways to have a conversation, to emotionally control the environment. I'm a believer, and one of the books that I read all the time is the Bible. Even in Isaiah 1, verse 18, it says, Jesus said, let us reason together. One of the things that we have not learned is how to reason together. Reason. People are going to be, you're going to be affected. You're going to be disrespected, whether you're driving down the road. I'll give you an example, and I'll ask my next question. I remember years ago, I was in a situation, I'm not going to say entanglement, but I was in a situation with someone, and the person is driving, right? This lady cut in front of him. And instead of saying like, whatever, right? This person went off. And I remember saying to myself, wow. And then afterwards, I said, that was a lady. Oh, I don't care if it was a lady. It doesn't matter if it was a lady. Do you believe how you do anything is how you do everything? Going back to the idea that you say it's just a surface. Do you believe that this idea of I'm protecting my family? How can you be protecting, quote unquote, your family, and you are screaming and profanity as well, not only in front of the person you supposedly protecting, but also all the people were around, including women and those who are much older than you. How do we as a society learn to control ourselves so that we don't continue to do the same thing and expecting different results? Do you think it's time for us to take seriously, like you said, mental health? Fabiola or Lisa?
Yes, I was thinking very much so on that. And even given with COVID, I feel like it's heightened many people's mental health. The 2 years that we spent in isolation, people have been able to distract themselves by working or having to just be on a Ferris wheel of life in a way. And so the whole slowdown, having time to think, maybe too much time to think for some, it can really affect your mental health. Things that you never had a chance to think about or evaluate affect you. Maybe it was, I was in a bad job situation that was really stressful, and now you're wondering, why did I spend this time here? It could be being in a relationship. People's relationship during COVID either thrived or they got a divorce or separated. So a lot of that is also people taking the time to get to know themselves. I think we're very distracted with all the responsibilities that we have with adulthood and life, that we don't really ever think about, self-reflect. Not many people have the time to do some self-reflection. And I believe the mental health aspect is a part. People have different types of trauma, whether you're rich or poor, young or old, there's different scenarios or experiences that you've had that have affected people in different ways, both positive and sometimes negative. And that's where I do feel the mental health is important, because it does come out. And even thinking about the relationship standpoint, you actually learn even more about yourself if you do some self-reflection or have emotional intelligence of areas of opportunity for growth, which I think is very important as well. So I do believe the mental health is really, really tied to the emotional intelligence, because if you know yourself, you know your triggers, and then you've decided of how I want to proceed moving forward, you might take that time to, like, okay, I'm mad, to process, like Fabiola was saying, take a beat to cool down, and then think logically, okay, how can I resolve this, instead of just giving a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, you talk about managing your emotions. Being able to manage your emotions is so important, because of the fact that you're not, again, saying, like, not only you are acting out, but other people are witnessing what's happening, especially children. I was talking to someone earlier and she said, well, this person was defending his wife. Again, that idea. But what about those who are watching? Because his own child went online, said on his social media page, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. One of his sons. So you see how what you do can really make a difference. So managing your emotional intelligence, cultivating that, understanding how it works, and how you need to bring yourself to a higher level can definitely make a difference. So going back again to on our level, every single day, we have to deal with coworkers, we have to deal with folks at church, folks in our families. What are some of the ways, like if we feel like, okay, because scientists, psychologists have said that emotional intelligence is something that people are innately born with, innate. You were born, when you came out of your mom's womb, guess what? You had emotional intelligence. Others have said, no, it's nurtured. You can actually learn emotional intelligence. So what are some of the ways that you think folks can, those who are watching, saying, like, I'm interested in becoming better and being able to control, being able to reason with my emotions? What are some of the ways that they can do that?
I think the first step is to make sure to take time out for yourself. I think we live in a fast world. Everything is fast, and we need to take the time out for ourselves, and sometimes just learn to say, okay, I'm getting off social media. Okay, I'm turning off my phone. Okay, like I have 9 agents. Most of them know not to message me on Sundays. They'll probably not get a response maybe like till the next day, unless it's like an emergency. Like if no one is dying and they're, but I think as human beings and as emotional creatures, we need to be able to know when we're getting to that overload point, and or we overload and erupt, because to me that's what I saw. I just saw a volcano, like it was a volcano, how it built up and then just erupt. It just happened to erupt at the wrong place. It's but and maybe taking the time and taking time to just cool down, like whatever you do for self-care. Self-care doesn't mean go to the spa. Self-care could mean watching TV all day because it's something that you don't usually do, or doing something that you don't usually do that your mind is not consistently going. That's my definition of self-care. And I think as far as the whole protection thing too, when I looked at that, and just to be a kind of like a, I guess, a devil's advocate, the other person that took the slap, I feel like when you say certain things, you should be prepared for a reaction. That reaction may not be what most people react, but we live in a world, like you said, Lisa, we're just coming out of COVID. Some people are just not coming out of their house. Like the things you see on, like the things I see on the news, I'm like, people are losing their minds like right now. So when you're when you're a comedian, I do feel like if you're gonna like say sensitive jokes like that, be prepared for crazy reactions, because you don't know what that person's going through. That joke might be funny, might have been funny yesterday, but today you don't know what news that person received. You don't know how many other things they done dealt with that day, and what you said might just cause them to erupt. So I would just say,
going back again, Fabiola, that's why you have to cultivate your emotional intelligence, because I mean, I've been to comedy clubs. When I say laugh, I actually love to laugh, and there are certain things I don't like to hear when I go, but I go anyway. Well, anyway, right? But I mean, like, if you sit in the fun, be ready.
Yes, be ready.
You are gonna be a target, and it's all in good laugh. You know, it's just. And I saw the movie G.I. Jane that when it came out years ago, right? I was a teenager or something, or a young adult at the time, and I didn't think of anything. Actually, I was laughing just like he was laughing until I saw what happened, right? And people have mentioned that, you know, you don't know what everybody is going through. Nobody knows what everybody's going through. Do I know everything you're going through, Fabiola? Do I know everything that you know? We were talking offline. How you doing? How was your day? Right? And we all started talking about the day that we had, right? But we don't know. You don't know what I'm going through. It's my job to control myself. It's your job to receive certain things and say, you know, because imagine, like, every time you go to work and you get someone that this person gets under your skin. Do you go around slapping people just because they get under your skin? Right?
No. Not that we might not think it. Not that we might not think it. But I think another thing too, that the person that got the slap also, I think in a documentary, they actually lack emotional intelligence. And so as being a comedian on a stage like that tonight, you know who you might be presenting, you have an idea who might be in the front row, you get privy to certain information. So you kind of want to see and usually when you develop a joke, you see what the highlights are of that person's current life. And the wife was recently speaking about it, and how she's had the courage to be able to come out, you know, with the way she's done her hairstyle now. So it's kind of like, okay, but he did suffer from that, which is why his marriage had also dissolved in a way, because he literally lacked that aspect. So it's almost like a catch-22. Like, he has his own, you know, the person that gave the slap has their own trauma, and the person that received it doesn't really have emotional intelligence, and who's been open about it, who's probably actively trying to learn more about that probably wasn't appropriate. So doing a little bit of research on that could have gone, you know, a little bit better. It doesn't warrant his reaction, but I have grace because people do have trauma that they carry around. So those are my thoughts on that.
I think for a lot of us, like you said, going back to the trauma that we grew up with, some cultures even worse than others because of the verbal abuse and the physical abuse and so many different type of abuses that people go through. It's so important that if you find yourself in a situation, would you agree, ladies? Like, if you find yourself in a situation where you're always angry, always lunching and charging at people, go get some anger management training, because cause you your life.
I
Because
agree.
at the end of the day, I mean, like, yes, folks are not allowed to disrespect you, but if they're using words and you come in at them with a weapon or your hands, they could react, and their reaction could be very deadly, right? And also meditate, that's why it's so important, like, to center yourself, right? Meditation for some people is prayer, so that you can build your self-esteem so that everybody is not disrespecting you. There are some folks, my goodness, they're always getting disrespected. You think it's because folks are disrespecting them, or they just like feel that sense of low self-esteem, and that low self-esteem is creating this, miscalculation. I think they call it displaced aggression. They all go and lunge at somebody just because they're feeling a certain way themselves.
Right.
Meditation, exercise. I think if Perpetua was here today, she would say eat healthier and exercise. Going back again to something that you said, Fabiola, folks, those high-powered, Hollywood people, they work so hard, right? Of course, they get a lot for return on their investments, but they work very hard. And sometimes they don't stop enough to really evaluate who they are as people. And I think, again, sitting there, and I had just had dinner with my sisters and their families, actually both, yeah, two sisters and families, and I had just had dinner. We were having so much fun. We were laughing. And then all of a sudden the entire situation changed. And I'm thinking, this person wasn't thinking about other people. And the reason that you don't think about other people is because you're not thinking about yourself. Right? Would you agree, Fabiola?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole situation, it's something that, I don't think it's something that just happened, even though that's what it appeared that happened on TV. I think it's a built up frustration, built up expectations from the world, like even with the word, protecting, that violence. And I think it's just, we put so much expectation on both sides, men and women. Men need to do this, women need to do that, men to do this. And you get to a point where, you either kind of find your own path and create your own expectation, or you fall into society's expectation. And I think one of the things we were talking about, Gabrielle, before we went live, is men can suffer from verbal abuse too. They can also suffer from physical abuse. And that could have been a reaction to maybe things that have said before. Sometimes men react because they feel like their women feel like they're not being a man based on society's standards, and I think that's another point that we need to look at as a society too. What does it mean to be able to not even just protect your women, protect each other? And what standards are we putting around that? Because, was it wrong? Was it right? I don't know. I don't know what his perspective is on that reaction, or we don't know what's going on at home. We don't know what conversation might have happened beforehand. And I feel like before we go and say, oh, this person was wrong, this person was wrong, like I said, step back and not just evaluate that point, but like what's really going on.
And I think I'm a neutral bystander. I'm looking, and I do know how I reacted and how I felt when I saw what I saw. And I had enough empathy to empathize with the person who received the blow, but I also have enough empathy to empathize with the person who gave the blow. And I think it's so important that because we don't know what's going on, we cannot pass judgment. But at the same time too, I think going back, that's why I did not come here to talk about he or she or somebody else. I wanted to talk about a topic that would help everyone, because it doesn't matter if you're in Hollywood or working at McDonald's. You need to get some level of emotional intelligence, because at the end of the day, you got to think before you act.
Right.
Right.
People, your customers gonna come and start
Right.
disrespecting you. Your coworkers will come and start disrespecting you. You could have done something to instigate it. God knows. But how you handle and how you react on a day-to-day basis can really make, your self-awareness. Who do you think you are? And that's the question we ask as being like, what do you call it? Being like, thinking like, who do you think you are? Like, being facetious or sometimes, thinking, trying to bring people down a notch. But who do you think you are? Who do you say you are? Because I think if you are aware of who you are and your self-awareness, you're not easily triggered.
Right.
And the way we had a show, I don't think you were part of that show. It was Level Up. How do you level up, especially women who are in business? How do you level up? And you level up by building yourself, by investing in yourself, by doing the work that you need to do so that you don't get so triggered.
Right.
Easily
Yeah.
triggered by what's going on. And I think these folks work very hard. Like I said, they're very skillful. They have like a talent that is amazing. And we can respect that. That's why he got the trophy. But at the end of the day, getting an Oscar and getting all that and getting all the money is not enough if you don't have emotional intelligence, because you can lose everything. Like he was very lucky. This person supposedly, as of today, has not filed charges against him. Yes, he was disrespectful, perhaps with what he said. If he had known about the condition and said what he said about her condition and said what he said, maybe it was a little insensitive. But you coming at him and doing this, that's no longer being insensitive. That was a crime. And he could have gone to jail and be a lot could happen. You could lose your entire family because of that. Empathy is so important. We talk about that so much on this show. And I think as a culture, as a community, Black and Brown community, we need to develop more empathy. And I would say, I don't know if you guys have had life experience. I have a neighbor who lost a grandchild at 24 years old last year because somebody didn't have empathy and somebody couldn't control themselves and somebody didn't know who they were, who he was. He didn't know who he was. So therefore his action towards this person ended up in him dying because he shot him dead. So we don't want that to happen. You're talking about a 21-year-old now who's sitting in jail and then a 24-year-old who's no longer with us. Well, because we haven't developed. And just like we want to have high IQ, right? When we're growing up, our parents say, read your books, learn, get your A's. I think it's so important for parents to educate their kids. Did you have a conversation with any young person in your family after you saw this? Because I was with my sisters and their family. And I went and talked to my nephew, especially, he's 14. I went to talk to him about what he had just seen. Did you have a conversation with any young person in your family about this so that they don't go and replicate and duplicate?
No, I had not had any conversations around it, but it could even be something not even less emotional intelligence, maybe not less even on a conflict, or it could be bringing an important conversation or a heavy topic to someone. Is it the right time to give this information? Like, is it inappropriate or appropriate to have a certain type of conversation or to do something? It's having that, oh, you know what? I might have to come revisit this later. So something even as small as a regular conversation. But I think it was just so overwhelming and there was too much going on with the internet. I think I only had the conversation, during a prayer meeting conversation where we were just talking about it. But nothing with younger folks. But I think that's important for us to try to do.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, I didn't have any conversation with my nephews about it. Now I'm curious what their thought is. But I think what I would say to my nephew is sometimes you have to know when to excuse yourself. From situations, from that bully, from that person saying things to you that you don't like. Because if you don't know how to excuse yourself, sometimes you end up looking like the bad person, even though you're not. I think that's what I would say to him. It's, sometimes you need to just excuse yourself. Just like when I get bad news or And this happens to me a lot in the real estate.